everyone, I'm Fifi, owner of Serendipity, the multi-award winning tea room and cafe here in Fife in Scotland, and welcome to Make Food with Fifi. We're going to be sharing weekly content from scones to cakes to evening meals to soups to everything in between, so if that's something you think you're interested in, please hit the subscribe button and leave some comments below. So today I'm going to be making an orange and almond cake. Now, orange and almond cake has been around for centuries. It sort of originated in the Mediterranean, where oranges were such a popular fruit to use in baking. But I actually tried this cake for the first time in Paris years ago with my mum, and I loved it, but it was a little bit bitter, a little bit tart. So I came home and I played around with some recipe ideas of my own, and I created my own version of it, which seems to work really well. Everyone seems to really enjoy it, the tea room. Now, we get a lot of gluten-free customers coming into the tea room, and this recipe is actually gluten-free and dairy-free. I didn't purposely develop it like that, it just is one of those recipes that naturally works. A lot of recipes just don't transcribe from flourless to gluten-free, and this is one that really seems to actually manage to hold well and is absolutely delicious for everyone to enjoy. Now, it's a very simple recipe. There's only one little time-consuming part, and I'll explain that in a minute, but it takes very, very few ingredients. All we need is 3 oranges, good size, about the size of a tennis ball, 350 grams of ground almonds. We want some flaked almonds for decorating, about 40 grams is plenty, a teaspoon and a quarter of baking powder. Now, if you do want to make sure this recipe is completely gluten-free, then make sure it's a gluten-free baking powder, and 225 grams of caster sugar and 6 eggs, and that is all you need to make this beautiful cake. So the only time consuming part, it's not time consuming for you, but it is something you have to wait on, is we actually need to boil up 2 full oranges, and this takes about 40 minutes to boil. So cool water into a pot and just roughly chop up your oranges. There's no method, it doesn't matter, because you're going to be throwing them all in. Just make sure you don't use the little green bits. So we use the rind and the pith and the fruit. The pith is the white part inside the orange, and this is actually what gives the oranges bitterness. So by boiling it through, it takes away the bitterness and just brings out the sweetness. And this is what we want to have for our finished flavour. So chop up 2 oranges, nice and rough, no method at all. And we're going to pop them into our pot of cold water. You drain the water off at the end, so it doesn't matter how much water you put in, but just be careful if you're going hanging out the washing or doing jobs around the house, that you keep an eye on it, because you don't want the water to burn dry and actually stick the oranges to the pot. So you might need to top up the water a little bit as you go along, but otherwise you really just have to put them into boil and just wait. So I'll just pop these into my hob here and turn it on to medium heat and let that come to the boil. Again, just remember to keep checking it to make sure the water doesn't boil out. Now, about halfway through your oranges boiling, you should pop your oven on to heat up. About 190 for a pan assisted oven, gas mark 5, just to make sure it's ready to go, because it only takes 5 minutes to put all the cake together once the oranges are boiled. Now, that's our oranges fully boiling away, and the water has reduced. Now they're nice and soft, even the rind is squishy in there, which is what you want, because you want to actually beat the rind into the mixture as well. So that is perfect. So we're going to turn off the heat, and we're just going to drain the water out and just keep the orange itself as like a mulch, which you're going to put in to your dry ingredients. So we're just going to let the oranges cool for a few minutes while we work out the rest of our ingredients. So into your food mixer, you want to add in your caster sugar, 225 grams, and you want to add in, and then 300 grams of the ground almonds. So this is your flour substitute. Now, you can obviously make this with, half flour, half almonds should you want to, but the almonds are just beautiful to hold together the oranges, and it just gives it a really different flavour than a floured cake. So the ground almonds go in as well, and 1¼ teaspoons of your baking powder. And again, if you want to be completely gluten-free, just ensure that that's a gluten-free baking powder. Now you're adding in 6 whole eggs. Eggs should always be at room temperature and should actually not be kept in the fridge. So pop those straight in. Perfect. Now once your oranges have cooled down a little bit, you can just tip them out, and with any little bit of juice that's left is fine, onto your chopping board. Now you just want to take a sharp knife and just run your knife through them, just to break them down as much as you can. Now you can do this in a food processor if you wanted to pulse it and break it down, but you're really just using another piece of equipment that you actually don't need right now. A knife will do just the same thing. As long as they've been boiling for 40 minutes, they'll be perfectly soft to be able to cut down. And that smell is just amazing. The smell of the orange coming through there is just absolutely incredible. Now you can add a teaspoon of cinnamon or ginger at this stage if you wanted into your dry mix. But I actually think the flavour of the orange and the almond alone is actually just plenty for this recipe. The rind is lovely and soft, so the knife just glides through it. We still don't want to have bits that are too big. Just make it easier for baking if they're broken down into little pieces. Now, there we are. So just tip that in as well. And turn on your food mixer. You can use a hand mixer as well for this. There's quite a lot of ingredients in there, so definitely a processor like this will actually work a lot better. Now just use a spatula just to loosen it away from the edges and give it a second little mix, just to make sure that everything is mixed through properly and that there's no patches of dry almonds together. Really just 2 minutes and another 2 minutes in the mixer. So just pop that out. And it looks sort of like almost like a thick porridgey sort of consistency, really, where you can just see that there. So we're just going to use our spatula and scrape it into an 8-inch tin. Now I've lined this tin with paper. You can grease it with butter if you like, but it's always easier just to line it with a piece of paper because it makes for getting out a lot quicker at the end. Now this is going to go into your preheated oven, 190 degrees, gas mark 5, for about an hour. I would check it after 45 minutes, and depending on your oven, if you feel like it's rising nicely and starting to colour on top, you can put a piece of clean dry baking powder over the top, just to ensure it doesn't brown too much. But otherwise, you just have to sit and wait. Perfect, into the oven. Now, once your cake is out of the oven, just leave it to cool. Keep it in the tin and just let it cool for about 20 minutes. So once your cake is reasonably cool, you can just slide a knife around the outside and just pop it out of your tin. Now to finish it off, we're going to decorate it with some flaked almonds and some orange drizzled icing, just to give it a last little finish. So we're going to take some of these guys and just sprinkle them over the top. Just loosely. There we are. Then we're going to take our last orange that we were saving, and we're going to cut it in half, and we're going to squeeze some of the juice just into a little bowl. Just like that. And then we're going to take some icing sugar and mix it in with the orange juice. Now mixing up icing is not an exact science, so you want to keep going until you've got it to consistency where it's thick enough to drizzle but not thin enough to run away. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. keep adding either orange juice or icing sugar until you have this consistency. Just like that. So we're going to drizzle some of this just loosely. Doesn't have to be any real pattern here. Over the top of our cake and over the top of our almonds. Now the almonds, because they're unlike flour, they do create like a crispy sort of top on the top of this cake. So when you cut through the shell, you'll have a beautiful, moist, gooey orange cake inside. And once that's drizzled on, you can just decorate it with some more almonds. And you can use some of your orange just to give it a little finish. And this stops you wasting any of the oranges that you've had as well. And this is perfect with an afternoon coffee or a morning Earl Grey. There it is, a very easy orange and almond cake, dairy free and gluten free, and absolutely gooey and sticky and delicious. This slice is for me, but the rest of it is going to go to the tea room in the morning for my gluten free customers. If you've enjoyed this recipe, please like it, leave your comments below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you have any questions at all on this recipe or anything else on the channel, please feel free to ask. And thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.